they're women. So they have it all. I thought that was a pretty neat fact. Now, we're going to move on. Before the timer, let's go to the tech and gesture master, which is another person who started the Celtic Festival and one of my favorite times. It's Beth. You have celebrated that for Kate and Eric and myself because that's our birthday week.
That's right. Yes.
And we enjoy it. So tell us what you're going to do with the tech and gesture master.
As the tech and gesture master, I will be looking for the use of technology and how we use it. I've already noticed so many backgrounds are Irish. Great job, guys. But I'll be looking for particular gestures, making sure that you're speaking with your hands, voice. Sometimes it means even the way you speak with your eyes. Thank you, Phil.
There we go. Let's now move on before the timer, let's get to the quiz master. Where's Eric? Eric Schneider, tell us what you're going to be doing.
Mr. Toastmaster, sorry I can't speak your Irish language because I suck at it. Not that word, was use another word. I can't say it perfect as you do. That's what I meant to say, not the other one. As your quiz master today, I will be quizzing all of you, so pay attention. There will be points at the end. Maybe some prizes, who knows? I might shove out some money, who knows? But let's pay attention, and I will be quizzing all of you at the end. Thank you, Phil, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Eric. Now, before I move in any further, I see we have Joe Budnick just showed up. We haven't seen him in a bit. And I'm glad to see you, Joe. Welcome again. And if we don't hear him now, he's on mute. But we also have Jim Wilkerson, who also was going to be our tech and gesture master. He volunteered for it. But I gave it off to Beth because she signed up for it. And Jim graciously said she could have it. So, but Joe, how are you doing? Can you unmute yourself? There you go.
All of you.
Welcome back, Joe.
Thank you.
Good. All right, let's move on. Timing. Timing is of the essence in this business of Toastmastering. The timer today is none other than Tracy. Tracy, what are you going to be doing today? How are you set up?
Thank you, Phil. The job of the timer in Toastmasters is timing to the second power. There are 3 speakers. It's the trinity to the second power, sorry. There are 3 speakers in each category. Table topics is 1 to 2 minutes. The second category is speeches, 5 to 7 minutes, and evaluators are 2 to 3 minutes. I will be timing each speaker within each category and reporting at the end.
Thank you, Madam Timer Tracy. That is wonderful. Now, we'll have a little fun. Larry Eggert, who I spoke with, and he said he's going to do this job for us. Now, he's got a son-in-law, I believe, down in DC deployed with the National Guard. So he's going to run off as soon as he's finished. He's going to disappear like a leprechaun with his gold bucket. And, but he is going to give us some fun. And he has a lot of people that he can pick from. But Larry said he's going to shoot out afterwards because he's afraid that somebody's going to throw something at him if he gives too many crazy questions. But let's turn it over to our table topics person, Larry Eggert. Larry, take it away.
Thank you for that wonderful introduction. I'm actually off to full-time babysitting. My wife and I are full-time. Our son actually is in DC. Ends this week, thank God. You never for those people of an extended age in the group, you don't realize what you went through in your 30s raising kids until you're in your 60s and trying to do it again. I can tell you that I go to bed at night at 9 o'clock at night and I'm up early. So pretty interesting times. All right. So St. Patrick's Day, actually a perfect topic for a table topics person. I also see I have a rich field of potential candidates. So that makes it a little easier for me. And let's see, the first question, and I have many here. I'm trying to pick a good one here. Let's talk about food. St. Patrick's Day is, in many cases, surrounded by food. I know Phil was talking about some of the restaurants' offerings that are going to be coming up. I know my Italian mother-in-law used to make the best St. Patrick's Day meal. She was a gourmet cook, and I still remember those. I look forward to those every year because she would make some really wonderful Irish food. So let's see. Marty, what is your favorite Irish food on St. Patrick's Day and why?
Thank you, Mr. Topics Master, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guest. My favorite food is threefold, or in a trinity. It's a food and dessert. I like the food would be, the dinner would be the corned beef and cabbage for sure. And for those of you that haven't got your corned beef and cabbage yet, Top Supermarket on South Transit Road in Lockport has a plethora of different cuts, points, and flats of corned beef. We have a bin full of cabbage. We have carrots, everything convenient for you to come in and pick up your corned beef and cabbage, everything you need for dinner. Corned beef and cabbage is definitely my favorite Irish food. For those of you that don't know, I am Irish, and I have a shirt on. It says the county of my family, Johnston, is from. It's County Sligo, S-L-I-G-O. And my nephew, Andrew Brady, went to Ireland a few years ago and brought shirts back for all of us, which I'm very grateful for. My favorite dessert would definitely be the shamrock cookie with the white and green frosting, minus the sprinkles. Thank you, Mr. Topics Master. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thank you, Marty. My favorite Irish food my mother-in-law used to make was soda bread. Now, I was raised in a German family when we didn't really celebrate St. Patrick's Day until I started dating my wife and got involved with the Italian culture. And of all things, to have an Italian woman make the best soda bread you've ever had in your life. My wife still makes it, which is, I always look forward to that every year. Our second question in the trinity of questions. Let's pick a good one. How about traditions for St. Patrick's Day? I know the traditions include music, parties, celebrations, races, parades. So, Jen, if you had a favorite tradition during St. Patrick's Day, what would that tradition be?
Well, how about taking it back to your last question? My traditions all revolve around food. And there is a trinity, more than a trinity. I don't know, whatever bazillion types of food are. I like to eat, and for St. Patrick's Day, my family enjoys getting together for breakfast. We do the traditional Irish breakfast. You have to do the white pudding, the black pudding, the rashers, the eggs. You get the little tomatoes, do the whole thing. So we basically eat all day. And of course, the most important part is actually the Irish coffee. And there's only one other person who knows how to make it, right, Kate, from up in Lockport. If you go to Seamus, they make the Irish coffee right there. It's almost as good as my mom's. Now, my mom heats hers up a little bit. That's her trick. She makes it just a little bit hotter than the actual coffee temperature, so that it stays the perfect temperature throughout the drinking experience. But that has, you know, the nice fresh whipped cream on top and the whiskey. And she prefers either Tullamore Dew or Jameson. You have to make sure you have the right whiskey in the Irish coffee, otherwise it's no good. And now the soda bread. Now, funny story. My mom's sister had this soda bread recipe, and my mom, she wouldn't give it to my mom. And my mom was trying to recreate it for years and years and years. And one time, one of my aunts said to me, we had made this family cookbook 10 years ago. It was in that family cookbook the whole time. My mom spent a decade trying to recreate this Irish soda bread recipe. So if you need a good one, I have a good one. But yes, eating is the best thing to do. And I forgot the most important part, Irish car bomb cupcakes. I'm going to have to make some of those this weekend for our breakfast. Food is the best. Enjoy. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thanks, Jen. I guess food is a tradition. I guess you morphed into that very well. Very well. Our final question, and this is a question on St. Patrick's Day. This will be the third part of our Trinity. It's a question you have to ask, and I think Jen was nice enough to begin that for me, is in many cases, I know for me when I was younger, St. Patrick's Day tended to revolve around some type of alcohol consumption. And I can think of a few stories over the years where I was not in my best shape at the end of St. Patrick's Day, sometimes before even the sun went down. So let's see. Kate, any good stories on St. Patrick's Day that may revolve around perhaps consumption or over consumption of alcohol? Kate?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Why on earth would you call on me and ask a question like that? What made you think I would have some answers and some stories? I think because this meeting is being recorded, I shall have to share some of those stories at this evening's social hour. Please come, and there will be more than a trinity of stories, I imagine. And bring your Guinness, like I see behind Larry. And I do love having a good time, and I can't wait to see you all again in person so we can do that. Marty's t-shirt says that his family brings on the crack, and that is the partying, the time, the good times, the fun. A Ceilidh is an Irish party, and like Phil mentioned before the meeting, the west end of Lockport is having a hoolie. It's another name for a Ceilidh, and so I think there will be some news stories coming out of that weekend. So I can't wait to go celebrate with my mom and go to the west end of Lockport, where there is, for David's knowledge, as a guest to our club's town, the west end of Lockport's history is built around the Erie Canal, and many of the settlers in this area built the canal. And so the Irish heritage here is strong. And the bar Seamus that Jen mentioned, the bar Danny Sheehan's, and many more on that end of town are celebrating with outdoor events and distancing and masked, but still enjoying wonderful music. I cannot wait to hear live music again. It has been such a long time. So I cannot wait to create more stories. Can you believe it has been a year since this all started? It was St. Patrick's Day weekend last year when all this went down. Do you remember? It was going to be Friday the 13th, a full moon and daylight savings time. And we all joked, ha ha, wash your hands. And then ha ha, the joke was on us and things went sideways. But change your clock backs again this weekend so you are ready for next week. And I will see you all in person again someday soon. Thanks so much, Larry.
Okay, I just applaud you on your ability to deflect right away from that alcohol thing. That was very good how you did that. I was going to bring up an Irish wake as kind of an ending. I was going to ask a question, but it might have been a little off color, but the police officers in Lockport, a lot of them were of the Irish heritage. And I was first on the job, I was exposed to an Irish wake. And as many of you know, that includes alcohol. I won't go any further than that, other than to say that they did have to carry me out of the bar at the end of the experience. So my first exposure to an Irish wake. that's all I have, Mr. Toastmaster. I turn it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, when you mentioned the Irish wake, my uncle Franklin Tracy, who preceded you as the chief of police in Lockport, we had a wonderful Irish wake. It was spent at Jake Stoll's and also at Skirto's. That's where they had my mother or sent my sisters to find me and my father and I at celebrating down at one of the pubs for Franklin. And he was a great chief of police, as you remember. And my other uncle, Walter Rudnick, not being Irish, but German, he was a motorcycle policeman back in the day, forever and ever. Now, I changed my shirt, and I had to change the background back, because I will send this out to you if you can't read it. But I went to Woodcock Brothers a few years ago, and this is the shirt I got. And it was great. It was at one of the dust off your kilt parties. I don't know if they're having one this year, but I got shamrocked at Woodcock Brothers Brewery. They do a wonderful job. I was mooted there. So now what I need is a timer's report. Where's our timer, Tracy?
Thank you, Phil. I'm happy to report that our trinity of speakers all qualified.
Perfect. And a word master's report. David.
The word also enjoyed being bandied about by all three of our speakers. They came through as a true trinity in the use of the word either trinity or shamrock. And Phil, remind me before the meeting is over, because I got something in the mail yesterday that you're going to be quite astounded by. I just remembered. So don't let me forget to tell you about that. And make sure we do it before the meeting's over for full impact, full impact.
All right, I'll try to remember, Dave. If I don't, please change for me. Now, I changed the background. That background, and vote for your favorite table topic speaker, was done by one of our former Toastmasters, Jess Tomino. Now, you only see my head in there because I have a green shirt on and a green background. But that is what, Katie or Beth? Where's Kate? Beth, we'll turn it over to you. It's a colada, and it has my kilt that I use, the colors of it. And Jess Tomino painted this for me on my birthday. I thought it was great. And as you can see, there's the heart, the crown, and the hands, and then it's surrounded by the colors of the kilt. And that's my tartan, as they would say, the tartan. So the colada is really good. I have a lot of colladas from the Celtic Festival that I wear, t-shirts. They're wonderful. So we have our voting in. Now we've got to move over to the most important part of the meeting. And that's why I like to take the most time for this, because this is the most important part where people have actually gone, prepared a speech, and they're going to deliver that speech in 5 to 7 minutes or whatever else. And I do have the timing and the titles of the three speakers, but I'm going to turn it over first to our evaluators who are evaluating them. And our first evaluator, evaluating Carol Ann Halstead, is cousin Thomas Moran. Both, by the way, both being Irish, but we're related on the German side. Pick that out. So, Tom, are you ready? And my mother was your godmother too, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. She was always there on Sunday morning to pick me up for church. You know. Phil, I might want to mention your floating head is kind of eerie.
I know. That's why I'm changing it right now.
Okay. This
Gotta get rid
morning,
of it.
fellow Toastmasters, it's my pleasure to evaluate Carol Ann Halstead. Carol is doing a speech from Connect with Storytelling, and her objectives are pretty simple. A couple of things that she wants to accomplish outside of the objectives of the speech are to take care of her ahs and ums that she may be using in past speeches. But here's the note to the evaluator for this speech. The member is completing this project is focusing on using stories in a speech or creating a speech that is a story. The member may use any type of story, personal, well-known fiction, or one of his or her own creation. Now, the time for this is 5 to 7 minutes, and Phil will give you the title. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.
Yes. Carol Ann Halstead, she's moving on into storytelling. And this one I'm excited about because I have been there, and it's true. It's absolutely true, the story she's going to be telling you. The title of the speech is Pastel Houses, Turquoise Waters, Bermuda. Let's welcome Carol Ann Halstead for a 5 to 7 minute speech. Carol Ann, it's all yours.
Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, a cruise was by no means on my bucket list when I had an opportunity to set sail back in 2009. We had been visiting our friends in Philadelphia, and Joan actually worked for a travel agency that planned cruises. So she and her husband, Bob, told us they were going on a cruise in October. And this was May of 2009 when we visited them. They said, why don't you consider joining us and two other couples that they knew were going with them? When we got back to Lockport, we called our friends Janice and Joe and asked if they'd be interested in going on the cruise, because Janice actually had lived in Bermuda for a couple years when she was young. So the four of us decided to go, and we drove to Baltimore, and there was a motel that had a park and cruise deal. So you were able to leave your car at that motel, and they provided transportation to the dock. Now, going on a cruise was not something I thought I'd be crazy about. I was worried about seasickness and just being claustrophobic out in the middle of the ocean. And as maybe you can see the look on my face. I'm not sure you can detect it, but it does not look like I'm excited about going on a trip of a lifetime. We boarded the ship, the Grandeur of the Seas, and we found our cabin, and then we went to have a drink, and all of our cruise mates were there. And all of a sudden I looked up and realized the boat was moving. On this trip from Baltimore, it goes down to Chesapeake Bay before going out into the Atlantic. So it was very smooth, the part of the beginning of it. And on the third day, after being out in the middle of the Atlantic with water everywhere, we were told we'd be arriving in Bermuda early in the morning. And our friend Janice, I said, had lived there. She was so excited when we saw the Bermuda coming into view. You would have thought that she had been at sea for 3 months and somebody said land ho. And these are the pastel, sorry, little pastel buildings there. I know it's a little difficult to see. And the first day we were docked, we went on a tour of Bermuda. And we went from one end to the other. And as you can see, it's kind of shaped like a fish hook. And we started way at one end and went way to the other end. And it took most of the day, even though it's only a 25-mile long island, but we made several stops and the speed limit is only 25 miles an hour. So very curvy roads at times. Our friends Joan and Bob in previous trips said they rented scooters. I was not in favor of that because Bermuda being a British-owned island, you drive on the left side of the road, and I could just picture forgetting that, being on a scooter and going around a curve and having a bit of a disaster. The next 2 days, we went to Horseshoe Bay. And this is, you can, sorry about these, you can maybe see a bit of the turquoise waters behind me. And at that time of year in October, the water is the same temperature as the air. So there's not any big contrast of temperature when you step in. I did not like the waves, so I spent most of the time in a cove. Now, then when we were back on the ship headed home, there was plenty of food and beverage and entertainment. And one of the groups that was there was the Happenings, which many of you may remember with their I've Got Rhythm and See You in September tunes. But before we knew it, we were back on dry land. We were in our car and headed back to Lockport. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Carol Ann. Now, I would like everyone to take 1 minute to write a note to Carol Ann to help her in her future speeches. Give her some comments, how she might improve, or what she did well. So take 1 minute to write a note through the chat room.
Are you timing this, Phil?
No, I'm just winging it, as one would say. All right, let's move on. Now, Carol Ann spoke about the North Atlantic a little bit. And when you're talking about St. Patrick's Day and the North Atlantic, I cannot help but speak about my friend Kevin Kenny, Jackie's husband, because he had some memorable stories of the North Atlantic and St. Patrick's Day. And we would many times on St. Patrick's Day, we would go over them. Now, I have in back of me a couple of Guinnesses. Also to one side, there's a little shot. Now, this next speech had to be inspired by that, because I'm going to turn it over to our next evaluator, who will introduce will actually tell us what the speaker will be speaking about. And our second evaluator is Sylvia.
Good morning,
Sylvia?
everyone. Morning, everyone. Excuse me.
There you go, Sylvia. Thank you.
You can hear me now?
Gotcha.
Okay. Morning, everyone. My voice is a little scratchy this morning. Allergies. Who would know March 11th, I would have my back door open. Never would heard of that in Western New York, but it's a gorgeous day. This morning, Thomas is going to persuade us with a well-organized, humorous speech. This is the first time he'll be presenting this speech. He'll have to represent it again at a later date. And because of this, he would like us to give him input in the chat box to help him for his second presentation. The time is 5 to 7 minutes, and I do know you have his title, Phil.
I do. Thank you. Thank you, Carol Ann. Or Sylvia, sorry. I get things a little bit discombobulated. Now, as I said, this speech had to have some inspiration behind it. The title of the speech, a 5 to 7 minute speech, is A Leprechaun Married a Unicorn. Thomas Heldwig. Thomas.
Good morning, Liam Lockport. This morning, I'm going to be telling you a wee bit of a story, a love story with a wee bit of truth in it, don't you know? But before we go over where I am in my future, let us go back to the past with a little bit of background. We magical creatures also fall in love. We do so, and we enjoy it just as much as you do. Now, I saw a YouTube video, crazy versus hot, how you rate different people, whether they're really hot, they're really crazy. You don't want those people. You want someone not so crazy, very hot. Well, in magical creatures, we have the same type of thing. We look at how magical the creature is. And we look at their alignment from evil to good. So that the ones on the low magic, good to evil, those are the witches. They don't have magic, they use magic. Well, on the far side of that, very magical creatures, the creatures of magic comes from are evil ones like dragons and good ones. The good ones are also for us unicorns, just like your chart. They are very rare, very magical. Well, as you would suspect, we little leprechauns, well, we're not all magical. And we're not that pure. So I would have to do some work to fall in love with a unicorn. But I saw her. I saw the one. And I was infatuated. Let me tell you, my intentions were good. And as you know, the Irish saying, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. But in the beginning, that seemed like enough. I saw, imagine, something so pure, so beautiful, emanating magic. Oh, it had to do with something. So I went to a witch. And I said to her, can you do, I will give you some gold and I give you a wee small wish, but you need to predict love for her. Well, this was a bad thing. I knew it. I knew it could backfire. I knew it was not a good idea, But I did it anyways, because that is my nature. And I left there and immediately saw a couple, a young siren and centaur in love. And I knew at that moment I had to do something, and I had to make sure. I had to remember my priorities. So I arranged a meeting and saw her. She had heard from the witch, and this intrigued her. I tried very hard to impress her. I did everything. I showed her my pot of gold. I showed her a rainbow. I showed her I could grant wishes without being mean. But all this didn't work as well as I thought. She looked at me and she said just one word, fate, and ran away. So there it was, it all blew up in my face. And I had only myself. I was on a path already. I had to continue. So I went back to the witch and I said to her, give me a prediction, a real one. You can share it with her too. The witch, in a very low and mystic voice, said, future change comes after death. I didn't like this. I'm immortal. The unicorn's immortal. I'd have to wait. I don't like to wait. My father used to tell me, you make a wonderful dish and you put it in the oven. Either it will rise or it won't. There's not a damn thing you can do about it. But the witch told me the fact that there would be change, there would be a possibility, so I waited. It was something I couldn't handle very well, but I did. And only 2 mere seasons later, the news of the witch's death came to me. So there I was, with the witch's death in one hand, and the pain from my heart in the other. And they made a change in me. They increased my heart by a trinity. And I looked there where my pot of gold used to be, and it was empty. And there inside was just one ring with one word on it, love. And with that, I went to the unicorn and she'd seen I changed. She knew I was worthy, and she ended up falling in love with me. And we have been living and loving happily ever after.
Now, I want you to take 1 minute to chat in the chat room ideas for Tom. And we'll take that minute starting now. I did time this one. So now we have to go on to finish our trinity of speakers. And this one is going to be, Mike Licata is going to do the evaluation here. And I will now have Michael take over and tell us what Larry is going to be speaking about. Go ahead, Michael.
Good morning, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. This morning, Larry is going to continue to workshop his Toastmasters International speech for the contest, which is next Saturday. Larry is working out of Pathways, the Persuasive Speaking Speech. His purpose of this project is for the member to understand the types of persuasive speeches and deliver a persuasive speech at the club meeting. Larry also wants to encourage everyone at the meeting today to offer feedback at the end, because he's workshopping this as he tries to continue to improve his speech and his presentation for the upcoming Toastmasters International contest. And Madam Timer, the time is 5 to 7 minutes.
Thank you, Michael. Now, again, let's make sure that we pay attention to Larry's speech. Look for things that might help him improve for this contest. The title of Larry's speech again is The Present, 5 to 7 minutes. Larry McKenzie, The Present.
The date was July 8th, 2011. I was out working in the yard and my phone rang. Hello? My daughter, Kelly. Yes, Kelly. You're on your way to the hospital? I'm on the way. Why was I on the way? Well, Kelly was about to give birth to two beautiful young ladies, Hope and Cassidy. Hope and Cassidy, two beautiful girls that would change my life. Now I have over 11 grandchildren, and how are these two young ladies going to change my life? Well, about 6 weeks after Hope and Cassidy were born, Hope suffered cardiac arrest in the PQ unit at Oshai Hospital. It was touch and go. We didn't know whether she was going to live or not. The doctor came in and they weren't sure what was happening. But during that 6 weeks, she contracted an ailment which was called hydrocephalus. Now, hydrocephalus, what was that? We did not know. Hydrocephalus is an abnormal accumulation of spinal fluid within the brain. The only treatment was brain surgery. Hope has a shunt that was inserted into her brain so that she may live. There is no cure. How would this change my life from this young lady? Well, back in 2005 and 2007, 2 different years, I suffered a catastrophic accident. I had 2 rollovers. I rolled over on the thruway going 70 miles an hour in my car, broke my neck, spent 4 months in a halo vest, completely immobilized, not knowing whether I would be able to walk or even do anything. The doctors came in and they said, you have to have hope. You have to have hope. And even with that, I couldn't seem to work through it. Those dark days were there. I couldn't suffer. I was suffering through the pain, didn't know what to do. And when my doctor came to visit me, my family doctor, he said, Larry, he said, we're only doctors. I'm from India. And in my country, we feel that you can heal from within and you have to have hope. Good words, but how did that, was that going to help me? I was still in so much pain. My cousin Barry came to visit me. During his visit, he brought me a book. The book was called The Present. And The Present was written by Spencer Johnson. Now, The Present was an engaging story about a young man's journey to adulthood and his tireless search for the present. It was a mysterious and elusive gift that he first heard about from this wise old man. This present, according to the old man, was the most valuable gift a person could ever receive. Why? Because it's that one thing that doesn't change in your changing times. The present. Well, how is this going to help me? Well, I read the book. And the book said, As this young boy becomes a man, he grows disillusioned with his work and his life, very similar to how I was disillusioned with what was happening in my life at that particular time. So the young man returned to the old man and asked him, "What is this present?" The old man said, "You have the power to find the present for yourself. You have to just look for it." Heeding that old man's advice, the young man embarked on a worldwide search for that magical gift, the secret to his personal happiness and lifelong success. Well, the young man had searched high and low and all but given up, similar to how I was giving up, until he received that present. Well, in 2005, I started to recover and started feeling better. Not quite myself. 2007, I had another accident. Broke my back, 3 ribs, fractured my skull, my left elbow. I was back in that dark place. And then I remembered the present. You have to have hope. I fought through it, and I remembered that in the present. Now, this precious present was a lovely little book that reminded me to concentrate on living in the present and not to focus on the past or the future too much. Well, my hope was born in 2011, gave me my purpose to what I needed in my life to keep me from that dark place. Like the young man, I found myself not knowing what the present was. But in order to know what that present is, in the infamous words of Maya Angelou, you can't really know where you're going until you know where you've been, the past. So in remembering the past and those things that had happened, I could not say they didn't happen. They did. But the only thing that I had control over was that present. So the greatest present was the immediate today. So like that young man and like myself, I implore you to please find that best gift you can ever give to yourself and to those that you care about by remembering that past. Live within the present because you have hope. Hope. You have the opportunity potentially every day to make a difference in the future. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Larry. I want you to take 1 minute of silence to make some comments, give some thoughts for Larry to help him in the future. I would now like a timer's report. Madam Timer, Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I'm happy to report that the trinity of speakers all qualified.
Great. Now, Larry, can you put up the voting for us, please? And we'll vote on who we felt did the best job today. And we'll move on after that to our evaluators. Now, I'm going to make an assumption that all of our evaluators are ready to go and tell us what they saw. Let's start off with cousin Tom. Tom Moran, your evaluation, please.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Interesting story this morning. Carol has a knack for telling stories, and I think the reason they're so successful is she's well organized about it. She starts, well, and of course, when you're talking about a cruise or any sort of travel, there's a natural following of from beginning to middle to end. And it begins with how they decided to go on the cruise, then the cruise itself, and then back to Lockport. So that was nice, and that follows our thinking when we're listening to her. There's a lot of things I didn't know about Bermuda, even though I've been there. I was quite intrigued with the color of the water, and that is an important part of your trip to Bermuda, is to appreciate that water and the temperature. And I could feel the water actually when Carol was talking about it. I think that's what I was feeling. I don't know, I'll have to check later, but that's what I felt, was that nice warm water. You're very descriptive, Carol. A couple of things we could do here. I appreciate you standing up for the speech. That's something that a lot of people have tried, some successful, some not so successful. The important thing about standing up, where you are in relation to your computer or your laptop, whatever you're using to connect with us, you need to know where that spot is. And in the entertainment business, you'll see they put a little X on the floor or something that reminds you that's the spot you need to be in, so that people will see you, the full image of you. You can't always see that on your own computer. So it's important to mark that out for yourself. I like the way your transitions went. They were very smooth. You went from one thing to the next, and it flowed very smooth, someone like the water around Bermuda. Another thing about the computer and the camera, when you're using pictures, you need to know where the actual camera is on the computer. See, I'm going to put my finger on my camera. That's right where it is. So when you're holding the pictures up and trying to show people a little bit extra about your trip, you got to make sure that you're right on the camera. When you were showing us the pictures, and I'm sure you didn't know this when you were showing us, was that they were off-centered, so we could not see. It was not focused on what you intended for us to see. So it was kind of awkward, except for the map of Bermuda, which came through nice and clear. So we have to be careful with that sort of thing. All in all, I think you did a wonderful job, Carol, and I can hardly wait to hear about your next cruise. Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Tom. Let's move on to our next evaluator, Sylvia Baptiste, evaluating speaker number 2, Thomas. Sylvia.
Yes, hi. Tom, what a speech. I think it was one of the best ones I've heard from you for a while. I liked it. Our members don't know that, but I contacted Tom yesterday afternoon when I saw his title. I was really intrigued, thinking, oh, leprechaun married a unicorn. What the heck was that all about? So I contacted Tom yesterday afternoon and said, okay, with pathways, we don't see what the other evaluators, your past evaluators, said to you, what they would like to see you improve or how you should improve or challenge yourself. Is there somewhere you want me to focus on? And Tom, said, well, it's a humorous speech. He's going to be doing this twice. It's the first one, presentation. And that is probably one of the hardest things with doing this on Zoom, is trying to visualize everything with these small boxes of people. And you did a great job. I enjoyed your speech. It's a love story. I did not know that was going to be a love story by the title. And it's his story, his wife. Is your wife in the room with you, Tom? Oh, she should be in there. It's a nice story. The thing I had a hard time of when I was trying to write this valuation up is the clarity of the persuasion. I didn't get the clarity of it. Maybe other people did. Maybe I didn't have enough of caffeine this morning to figure it out. But that is where I'm going to like to challenge you on and see if you can make it a little more clear what you were trying to persuade, or what was the persuasion. Was it, I missed it, and I'm sorry if I did, but I loved it. You had a great ending. Your voice was clear. You had good vocal. You had great eye contact. You brought yourself to the camera. You had us all looking at the, watching you and seeing where you were ending, how you were going to end this. So we were all aware of what was going on, interested, and your comfort level was over the top. And I really did enjoy it, and I'd like to hear it again the second time. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia. Now let's move on to evaluator number 3, Michael Leclerc.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and good morning, Larry. Larry, first of all, I just want to say congratulations on making as far as you did in your national contest. I know that it's never easy, and you are a great ambassador for Toastmasters, for Lockport Toastmasters, and the other clubs you are part of. I think that you workshopping the speech is a brilliant idea. I also spoke with Larry yesterday just to check in to see what he wanted me to focus on. And I think, Larry, you did a great job. You are very, very passionate about the speech. You did a great job using your own personal stories, and you definitely tugged at the heartstrings. And I know that when you go to do international speeches and contests, they usually really, those personable heartstring stories go very, very far. Now, I did notice that one of the things you told me to focus on was the beginning, and I know that it was a little bit disjointed. I know you had a couple of restarts in there, and you also, to get really, really nitpicky, you used a couple of modifiers when you were explaining different parts of your speech. You mentioned hydrocephalus, and then at the end of that thought, you said there was no cure for it. So I would change there's no cure. I would just tighten the speech to say there's just no cure for hydrocephalus as part of it. I also thought your transitions, you did a great job using technology as well. It wasn't distracting. I know that, and you have done a great job of mastering Zoom without it being super distracting. So congratulations and good work on that. I think that I know you're reading from notes still, because you're either reading from notes or you're reading from a basic outline, because I noticed you did have strong eye contact, but there were different points at the speech where you were looking at lower, your eye level lowered on the camera. So I want you to continue to work on that. Just either try to put the outline right under your camera, see if you can figure out on your laptop or your computer if you can do split screen with Zoom, with maybe a Word document at the bottom, and then have your Zoom experience right underneath. I also have to give you a good job. I give you a lot of credit, and you did a good job building towards a conclusion. I don't think enough Toastmasters really know how to do that. I think we usually we try to end it quickly when we look at the time, but you weren't distracted by the time. You came in on time, so I have to give you credit for that, to make it, as you've tried to figure out how to make it tighter. But I do want to give you a lot of credit, and I wish you good luck in the contest on March 20th. And that is my evaluation this morning, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you, Michael. Now I need a timer's report. Madam Timer, Tracy.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, and all 3 evaluators did come in on time.
Perfect. Now, Larry will put up for the balloting, and we'll move on. Now, good. Now, I came up because we're getting to the close of the meeting. And now we have to introduce the most important person in this whole meeting. I saved him to the end because he does not like to be interrupted. He likes to do his concentration, just like he does when he does his star search. Stephen loves that. Now, I hope I've sucked up enough not to have brought you in at the beginning, just to ask for my forgiveness of the trinity of stupidity I did. So we're going to move on to our general evaluator, who's going to be evaluating me, our evaluators, and I will let him decide whether he wants to move on to the people who are going to give their reports, or he can turn it back over to me, because I'm turning control over to our general evaluator, the most important man of the meeting, Stephen Smith. Off to you, Stephen.
Thank you, Mr. Evaluator, or I'm the evaluator. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. I get it right here in my notes that you failed to introduce me at the beginning. That's it. You turned around and tried to cover your butt. So let's call that a wash. I was very much impressed by all three evaluators. They did classic evaluations. They did what we're supposed to do. They contacted their speakers before the meeting. Two of them said they called him yesterday so that they get some background information. They knew what he was talking about, and in some cases knew what it was that they wanted to look for, what the speaker wanted to look for in the speech. They were very well informed as to what they needed to do during their evaluations. They used the basic sandwich approach, but there was much more than that. They were informed, they gave valuable insight, and it's good and bad points. They elaborated on what they liked and had some encouragement. I like the fact that all three of them had some technical expertise to share with what the problems with doing one of these on this medium and looking at that camera and how to work with it better. This is all very, very good stuff. And I give all high marks to all three evaluators. Now on to Phil. First thing I want to mention is, Phil, I just got my ancestry DNA results back yesterday. Turns out I'm 33% Irish.
No doubt.
I figure how appropriate for today. But talking about all things Irish, you did do a very good job. You had the meeting very well organized. You had some good background. You took care of any loose holes. They were all covered before the meeting. You were on top of everything. So I give you high marks for all of that. As far as doing the reports goes, I don't have any notes to make sure I call everybody's. I will turn that back to you to do the reports if you don't mind, because I don't have notes about it and I don't want to miss somebody. And that's my report.
All right, Steve, thank you so much. And now I feel I really sucked up to you well enough to get a wash on that one. The first report was going to come right from the person right next to you, our master, Jill Rohrig.
Oh, okay. As has been noted the last couple of weeks, we're doing much better on our ahs and ums and pregnant pauses. There are very, very few to report. Carol Ann had some during her speech, but that's not too bad. They weren't as so obvious as they had been in the past with her speeches. She's improved tremendously there. I really did not notice many other ones during the meeting. Maybe this position is becoming obsolete. Back to you.
The reason it's not going to be obsolete is because we have good masters. Now let's move on to our grammarian, Lenny. Where's Len Thornton? I have a gallery up here. There he is, Len Thornton. Go ahead, Lenny. Moot. There you go.
I was indeed muted. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. Just a few things today. Phil, I noticed sometimes your words get a little jumbled and you reverse the order. You did actually catch yourself on one early in the meeting when you started something, then you said, my father and I. So kudos for catching yourself. sometimes if we slow down a little bit, play it in our head before we say it, things come out more smoothly. I will call you out on one later where you said ready to. Not even close to the word to. Ready to is what we were looking for there. David had bandied about. That was colorful. Carol, you said you can maybe see. And again, this is a case of mixing up the order of the words. Maybe you can see is what I think you meant to say. Thomas as well said only a 2 mere seasons. It should be only a mere 2 seasons. Larry used what is called a homomorphism. He combined catastrophe and accident and called it a catastrophe accident. I thought that was kind of unique. And Sylvia had charity of the persuasion. That was a colorful term. I had to think about that a little bit, but kudos for morphing those 2 words together. That's all I caught in my uncaffeinated state this morning, Mr. Toastmaster.
Thank you much, Mr. Grammarian. And I do get discombobulated and lose my train of thought all the time. Now we're moving on. If you can notice in the background, my favorite 2 parts of the Celtic Festival is the beginning with the gathering of the bands, and at the end, the bands again. It's wonderful to see those. It's just spectacular at the Celtic Festival. But let's move on to our tech and gesture master, Beth. Beth, go right for it.
You do have to click the right button. That's Tech Master, 101, right? I loved the backgrounds that everyone used today. It was really good. One of the things I wanted to point out that I thought everybody did a really good job of, if you were not speaking, you didn't do a lot of moving around and disturbing, or if you were going to do that, you stopped your video. People did a really good job with that today. For the gesture master, Carol, I liked that you stood. That was very good. I would like to see more gestures, more hand gestures. I don't think you talk with your hands as much as like I do and a few other, but maybe do that. Your evaluator pointed out you did not put the picture to the camera. Until towards the end, you got better at that. So I'd like to see more of that, but just use more gestures. Thomas, I liked the idea of you going away to be the leprechaun because you were smaller. So that was very appropriate. And as usual, you talk with your hands a lot, so you're very natural with that. Very good gestures there. Larry McKenzie, I loved your use of background pictures. That was great, really appropriate for the parts of your speech and how it went. And as usual, your gestures were very good. Your evaluator pointed out sometimes your eye movements were very obvious. I do not have that problem so much because I wear glasses. Sometimes people can't even see where my eyes are going. So without glasses, they will see that. So be aware of that when you're giving the speech for the contest. Mr. Toastmaster, back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Beth. I appreciate that very much. Now we're going to save the word master for last. So we're going to be looking for Eric, who's going to quiz us. Where is the quizling?
Right here.
Quizmaster. Oh, there you are. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, what food did Marty mention to pick up the tops?
Corned beef and cabbage.
Corned beef, cabbage, and carrots.
Very good. What is his favorite dessert? Does anybody remember his favorite dessert?
Shamrock cookies.
Without sprinkles.
Without sprinkles.
With no sprinkles.
What? What is Jen's St. Patrick's Day tradition?
A big Irish breakfast first.
Drinking.
Irish coffee.
Eating and drinking.
All right, this was in the chat. Who sang the Pina Colada song?
The band from
Escape.
Rupert Holmes.
Rupert Holmes.
Barry Manilow popularized it.
Yeah.
Okay. What was Carol Ann not in favor of during her cruise?
Being on a cruise, she didn't care for the idea.
Well, I find her scooter in there.
Oh, the scooter, yeah.
Yes, you're right.
And when is the speech contest?
March
20th.
Beautiful. Mr. Toastmaster, I'll turn it over back to you.
Thank you. Now, to Carol Ann, kudos to you for surviving a motorcycle ride on Bermuda. That is the most dangerous thing you can do there, especially those buses that have 2 inches on either side. And it is amazing. I was not going to get on one of those scooters to scoot around there. I put my trust in the bus drivers, and they aren't that good either. Now, did everybody use the word Trinity, I hope? Because it's time to find out, to pay the piper from David. Go for it, David.
Cousin Phil, could I say? Before you go to David, I just wanted to mention I was in Ireland and I stayed maybe a block away from Trinity College where they keep the Book of Kells. It's a very beautiful college setting. So I just wanted to mention that. Oh, I'm sorry.
I wanted to sneak the word in. Hey, Phil.
Hey, David, I like Shamrock Shakes.
You see? Oh, good. Phil, do you see this? You see this incredible piece of literature I got in the mail yesterday?
Oh, wow.
My sister-in-law for Christmas gifted me a piece of property in Ireland. I own a bit of the old sod. I own a bit of the Emerald Isle. Phil, I am an Irish lord and you're not. So let's stop this Irish banter you give me all the time to heck me. Okay, bang, zoom. Gotcha, Phil.
All right.
Dave. Jill was first with the use of the word. She used it once. Phil snuck it in 3 times. Mark Campos 2. David Jones 1. Tracy Farrell twice. Larry Eggert twice. Thomas Moran once. Sylvia Baptiste rolled in with one there at the end about SHAMROCK shakes. Who the hell would drink that? But never mind. And Thomas worked it into a speech, and that's my word report.
Thank you, Dave. And I've got to end this with one thing. If you know what the AOH stands for, I will let you know because I'm going to try and stay on time. AOH stands for add 1 hour. We're always late. Go for it, Eric. Turning it over to the president.
I got to hand it to you, Phil. All right. On to our winners today. Our best table topic speaker is, and he left, is Marty Johnston. Our best evaluator today is Mike Licata.
Yeah, about time.
And our best speaker of the day is Larry McKenzie. Congratulations to everyone.
Larry,
yay.
Are there any final announcements from the floor?
Who's Toastmaster next week?
Oh, crud. Look it up online.
Eric, we do not have a member by the name of crud. I'm sorry, but we do not have a member by that name.
All right, I am Toastmaster next week. I am Toastmaster next week.
Okay, Dave Licata.
In the spirit of Marshall McLuhan, where I'm going to make you think. The theme is Waukegan, you blew it. Waukegan, you blew it.
Not St. Joseph's Day, David?
I'm sorry, what, dear?
Not St.
No, we're not doing
Joseph's
St.
Day?
Joseph's Day. No, no. Waukegan, you blew it.
Who's Waukegan?
Well, do the work, baby. Get on there and Google your heart out. That's the whole point.
Okay, Tom, do you have an announcement? You're on mute. You're on mute, Tom.
Next week, the DECA program is doing their evaluator pitches. Every one of the students is going to speak. They have 1 minute to do a pitch to us, and then we will give them some feedback on how they did. So it's going to be a good meeting. They're coming along nicely. They've the two speakers yesterday both spoke for between 5 and 7 minutes, so they're getting much better. And then I had a question for Larry. I noticed he said he has more than 11 grandchildren. I was wondering what more than is that 12?
Well, since you asked, I have a couple of grandchildren that are step grandchildren, and they were my son's ex-wife's children before they were married, and since they become divorced, it's one of those family situations where she doesn't let those children part of our family. I still consider them my grandchildren because I've watched them grow, but I don't get a chance to see them that much. So
good. I have a similar situation.
Yeah, and it's
okay. On that lighter note, I'll turn it back over to
oh gee, thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Debbie Downer.
All right, I wanted to bring it back up because you see, the AOH is going to open up the song with the Irish national anthem. We're not sure which is the Irish national anthem, but it'll be either O'Donnell O'Boo or the Soldier Song, which is the fighting side. And I missed out on that introduction of Larry McKenzie because Larry McKenzie, half Irish, half Scottish. How in the daylights did you two get together? There's been no fighting since the day they were there, since they got over there. How did that ever happen?
It's the new Scotland.